we are launching our Domestic Violence Awareness Month campaign. We'll talk a little bit more about DVAM in just a moment. But super excited that you are here joining us. So wonderful to see so many folks here. I'm going to set the stage a little bit for us. So just so you know, all of you are muted as you come in. And you're going to stay muted. We're going to keep you muted because I know sometimes that mute button can sneak up on us and we can accidentally hit it sometimes. And so we're going to keep everybody muted just during our first portion of this. So as I ask the panelists some questions, we'll keep you muted. And then when we get into our audience question section, we'll go ahead and give you all the ability to unmute yourselves. And so when we get to that audience question section, you can use the chat box to ask a question. Our teammates are also going to be looking at the chat box throughout our time together to pull out any questions that you drop in before we get there. And then you can also use the raise your hand function if you want to verbally ask a question when we get to the audience section. So chat box or raise your hand when we get to the audience section. If any of you know me, I usually like to do questions throughout any time that I'm presenting or chatting. But just considering how many folks we have and that we have 4 different panelists, we're going to hold those questions until we get to that audience question section, okay? Now, if you are not familiar, the raise your hand button is going to be, it was there yesterday. I think it's going to, yeah, go ahead, Danielle. Talk us through how to raise your hand, would you?
Absolutely. So if everyone looks at the bottom of your screen, you will see a little heart icon that says react under it. If you press that icon, second button from the bottom will be raise hand right above be right back.
Awesome.
And once
Thanks,
your hand is
Danielle.
raised, you can click lower hand
Oh,
if you are done talking or decide that your question has been answered.
yeah, I love it. Thanks, Danielle. I promise it was there yesterday and now it's like moved on me. So I appreciate you being ready to go. Next quick note, we do have the opportunity to offer a CEU for this. Thank you, Claire and Nova. Super excited for this. Now, in order to get that, couple of really important things to know. One, in the follow-up email, you will get a link to get your certificate for that CEU. Now, in order to make sure you get that follow-up email, we need you to do us a huge favor, and that is go in and rename yourself to what you registered as. And so that will help us make sure that we can get that email out to you. If you have any questions about that, send a direct message to Danielle in the chat box and she will make sure to help you out with that, okay? Now, speaking of some of our teammates that we have, and I'm looking over, I got another screen over here. I just want to make sure I call it out correctly. If you have any technical issues, you're going to reach out to Danielle. So if you have any audio issues, anything, any trouble with Zoom, reach out to Danielle and she will help you get those things worked out. Okay? All right. And then, really, just a note here. We do have a lot of folks joining us. We do have some questions to go through. Technology sometimes, has some challenges. And so just please be patient with us. Just be respectful with each other. And also, this is just a wonderful reminder. I like to remind myself, assume the best intent. Somebody may use some language or ask a question in a way that maybe you wouldn't ask it or language that you wouldn't use. Let's just assume the best intent of our folks who are joining us here in the room. And I think with that, we can keep on moving. So, as I mentioned, as folks were hopping in, this is our official launch of our Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Often, this is called Domestic Violence Awareness and Action Month. So this October officially starts tomorrow, is really a month dedicated to raising awareness around how to support domestic violence survivors. What is domestic violence? How do we talk about it? How do we educate the public about it? And how do we take action to support domestic violence survivors? For us, this really means how do we support domestic violence survivors and their pets staying safe and together? One quick thing I do want to call out when I say pets, I mean our companion animals animals. I mean our emotional support animals. I mean our service animals. I also mean this is not just dogs and cats. Many folks will consider snakes, fish, goats, cows, horses, birds, any type of animals to be a member of their family. So when we say keep people and their pets together, that's really what we are referring to. So that is a little bit of why we're here. This is part of our 25 by 2025 campaign, which was created in partnership with our friends from Greater Good Charities. I think some of them might be trying to join us today. I'm not sure if they've hopped in yet, but just super excited to be moving towards the end of this campaign to help ensure that 25% of shelters in the U.S. become pet friendly by 2025. Before I get into having our panelists introduce themselves, I do want to move through really quickly to some of our teammates who are helping out behind the scene, just so you know who they are. Danielle, you are first, and then Susie and Johanna.
Hi, everyone. Like Katie said, my name is Danielle Works, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager for RedRover. If you have any technical issues today or have a question, feel free to send me a direct message in the chat.
Thanks, Danielle. Susie?
Hi everyone, I'm Susie Robert. I'm the Vice President of Programs here at RedRover. It's so great to see so many of you on the call today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Johanna?
Hi folks, I'm Johanna Casal, Communications Manager at RedRover. I'm so happy to see everyone here and thanks for being here.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And then I have Sherry and then Tia.
Hi, I'm Sherry Madsen. I'm the Director of PR and Partnerships, and very excited to see all of your faces today.
Hi, I'm Tia Johnson. I'm Red Rover's Outreach Manager, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, folks. So Danielle will be your go-to for CEU information for any challenges that you're having, but anybody else on the Red Rover team can support you with that. Danielle, has anybody from our friends at Greater Good Charities hopped on?
I am not sure. We have so
Okay.
many people in our
Yep.
participant
I
list
love it.
right now. I cannot tell you.
Gabby's here. All right, Gabby, can you unmute Gabby? Can you let Gabby speak for a moment? Hold on, Gabby. We definitely want you to introduce yourself, Gabby. And while Gabby, you're doing that, I'm going to spotlight our panelists. So this is a good opportunity. Sabrina's here too, Danielle.
I feel like
Gabby.
there's a lot of buildup now. I'm shy. Hi, everyone. My name's Gabby, and I manage the family and pet shelter renovations at Greater Good Charities, and I get to do all of the fun day-to-day work with Katie and Danielle and Tia with our Don't Forget the Pets coaching. So I'm really excited to be here today and be a part of kicking off Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I have my Pets Are Family shirt on. And yeah. And then
Thanks, Gabby.
Sabrina here as well, and Emily from Greater Good Charities.
Awesome. Hey, Emily. Hey, Sabrina. You're welcome to say something if you would like. If not, don't worry about it. No stress. All right. Pausing 3 seconds. Oh, Sabrina. All right.
I guess so. Hi, everyone. I'm Sabrina Smith. I'm a program manager and Gabby's right-hand lady over at Greater Good Charities. So I help with everything family and pets, renovations, and DFTP.
Awesome. Thanks, Sabrina. All right. With all that being said, I think it's time to introduce the folks who you actually really came here to see. We're super excited to have you all here. And, you've been just amazing partners for 25 by 2025 since we launched it. And just super, super grateful for your support over the years. And also for spending the next hour with us here today. So super excited. All right, Candice, you are up first. So let us know who you are. Maybe share where you're coming from and if you have a fun fact to share with us.
Yes, I'm Candice Amundson. Hello, everyone. I'm a domestic violence survivor and now an advocate. I serve on the board of directors at Alexander House, and that's a domestic violence and sexual assault emergency shelter in Blaine, Minnesota. A little known fact about me, once before becoming a realtor investor, I spent 20 years in veterinary medicine. And one of the most life-shaping experiences of my career was being part of a team that actually helped rescue pets after Hurricane Katrina. So that experience alone gave me kind of this firsthand insight to how deeply animals are affected in crisis. And I did see terrified pets left behind and confused and alone without their people. And I was also able to witness like this sheer joy when they were reunited with their people after 30 days. So that's really stayed with me. Later, I've taken that deep love for animals, and then I've created Linus's Pet Haven. That's the first co-sheltering program of its kind in our region, inside of Alexander House, and we do allow dogs, cats, rabbits, reptiles, birds, any species. So I'm here today because I believe with every fiber of my being that no one should have to choose between the safety of their pet. When we keep people and animals together, we really support healing on both ends of the leash.
I love it. Thanks, Candice. Couldn't have said it better any better myself. All right, Claire, you are up next.
Thank you, Katie and Candice. I just want to echo everything that you said. I loved it. I'm Claire Ponder-Selib. I'm the Executive Director at the National Organization for Victim Advocacy, and I'm tremendously excited to be here today. This is a topic that I'm so personally passionate about. When you were saying, Katie, a fun fact about yourself, I don't know if this is a fun fact, but when we're talking about the human-animal bond and the significance that it has for individuals, I thought of myself immediately, and I was a child with speech impediments, severe speech impediments. And so to me, like for so many children, animals were such an important part of my life and continue to be. You see my dog, Aiden, who's a wonderful 90-pound mutt, a very enthusiastic eater, as they say. However, I took this love of animals as a child and went on to volunteer for many years at the Humane Society and really integrated my interest and passion for domestic violence and victim advocacy with my passion for working with animals. Early in my career, working at the Humane Society of the U.S. on the link between animal cruelty and family violence, and really saw firsthand, both the opportunities for intervention and for holistically supporting survivors. So it all comes full circle today, and I'm honored to be a part of this panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. You are one of the reasons way back when why we're here today. You helped start this whole thing. So super, super excited to have you here. Thank you. Okay, Ashley, over to you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. My name is Ashley Rumschlag, and I am the National Director of DomesticShelters.org, which is a program of Alliance for Hope International. And our team just loves working with the Red River team. I'm a lifelong animal lover and grew up on a farm, had dogs and dogs and dogs upon dogs and cows and all the above. But I want to share my fun fact. I had about 2 years without a dog, and I just recently got a 4-month-old golden retriever named Gila, short for Gila Monster, which she very much is at times, and very fitting in this stage of her development. But I love to brag about my brand new puppy, Gila. But so glad to be here. So this topic is so important. As an animal lover myself, I couldn't imagine having to leave a pet behind to find safety. So looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashley. And what a beautiful pup you do have. All right, Lorie, last but not least.
Hey guys, I'm Lorie Westhoff. I'm the Senior Director of Corporate Affairs at Purina, and I helped create our Purple Leash project, which we'll talk about in a little bit. My fun fact is that one of the perks of working at Purina is that I get to bring my best friend with me to work every day. So here is Pepper.
Pepper!
Taking a nap. And she is kind of the unofficial mascot, I would say, of the floor, but there are probably 6 or 7 dogs on my floor all the time. So lucky to be able to bring her to work and be able to experience the magic of the bond that we all are so committed to protecting as part of the mission. I'm just so thrilled to be here today and really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
I love it. Pepper does think she is the official mascot of the floor, whether or not she is. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing those slides. And then I am going to leave the four of you up there. I've got a few questions for you. So we'll kind of go through some of these questions, and then we will open it up to the audience here in just a few minutes. First question for each of you. Why is recognizing the link between human violence and animal violence important to you and or your organization? Anybody want to go first? Do you want to go in the same order you introduced yourselves? Does that work? All right, let's go, Candice.
Okay, sounds good. Well, for this issue is a little personal for me, not just professional. Years ago, I was a victim of a violent attack while I was asleep that did result in a felony strangulation charge. And like so many survivors, I didn't leave my home when I should have, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't want to leave behind my dog Linus. And most shelters, even to this day, really don't allow pets. For many of us, that means that we have to make that choice. And it's your safety or sometimes the animal's life. And so I stayed because the thought of leaving him behind was just so unbearable. I felt that if I left him behind, I wasn't just risking my own life, but he could be victim of violence, or in some cases, some people and some abusers often threaten death with their pets. So they try to use this as a control, in a way to, control and punish their victims. So theoretically, it's real. I've lived it. I understand that, and that's why this link between the human and animals is just meaning so much to me, because violence doesn't just like target people's, it's family, and then the family, and the pets that are part of that too. They experience the trauma just like we do. And, it must be even more scary for them because they can't really talk about it. Often I think that the pets carry matching emotional scars from the abuse that they've endured just like we do. So to me, I feel like they kind of understand and they get where we're coming from. So the reason why I decided to found Linus's Pet Haven inside of Alexander House is more than just like a program, it's a lifeline. So we designed it with the belief that healing happens when you don't have to leave the loved one behind, when, whether they walk on two legs or it's a reptile or it's your bird. And now through my role as the board, this co-sheltering model that I'm working just ensures that no survivor is going to have to make that choice again. So when we recognize the link and then we build systems that really like truly trauma inform and help save lives, I feel like that's where it comes in. So I feel, at Alexander House, we've accommodated the rooms so that the pets have their own doors, they can go out, or the cats have their own areas to be. So we've taken the next step to actually start putting that into place.
I love it. Thanks, Candice. And thank you for sharing your story as well. Claire, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I was reflecting on this beforehand, and it's interesting for me to see. So I started doing this work and working on the link in 1998. And, Candace's story to me is so much of why I got interested in the connection, because, a few things, when we're thinking about as advocates, providing survivor-centered advocacy and holistically supporting survivors, and also recognizing, how important pets and animals are to us as a society, right? When we talk about the human-animal bond, and we know about all of the research about the physical and emotional and mental benefits of companion animals for many families. And so we can't then, in our response to domestic violence and all forms of family violence, separate out pets. I've always intrinsically believed this and believe it, even more now. A few things. One, from an intervention standpoint, we know that there can be multiple ways that survivors get support. And it could be that they first go to a veterinarian office because an animal's been abused, and that's where they first seek out assistance for abuse. The animal control could be called by a neighbor, by somebody who witnesses an animal being abused or neglected. that's an opportunity for us to intervene. And especially, and this is what we started doing back in 1998, training animal control, training veterinarians, making them part of coordinated community responses before we even had the language for the coordinated community responses. So we weren't separating out domestic violence from animal cruelty, because the reality is perpetrators are not separating it out, right? So from an intervention standpoint, I think it's so important. Second, from a support standpoint, we never want a survivor to be deciding between leaving an abusive relationship and leaving their pet behind. And we know so often the perpetrators use the pet against the survivor as well as against the children. And that ends up becoming a choice that no survivor should ever have to make. So that's important. The other thing that I think is interesting that has really evolved over the years in terms of our research and understanding from a justice standpoint is we now know, and there's been recent research, that when domestic violence and animal cruelty co-occur, there's more likely to be an arrest in those cases. So again, in terms of holding perpetrators accountable, it provides another opportunity. So altogether, to me, it's so critical that we are working as a coordinated community responses, and that as advocates, we are always asking those questions and bringing our counterparts within humane societies, animal control, veterinarians into a coordinated community response to family violence.
I love that. Yeah, I think this work really does require that holistic approach. And it works well when we have a holistic approach. You know, we tend to get really siloed sometimes, you know, and human welfare doesn't always talk to animal welfare. And then we also kind of get really siloed within that silo. And so I think this is a wonderful opportunity to kind of branch out of that. Thanks, Claire. Ashley, your thoughts?
Yeah, and that's a really great segue into talking a little bit about the Alliance for Hope. Katie, you were so kind to come out to our conference this year and talk to family justice centers across the country, which the Family Justice Center model is literally built on this idea of collaboration. So definitely agree with that, and agree with everything that Candice and Claire have said so far. But one of the goals of the Alliance of Hope, or the main goal, is creating communities of safety, hope, and healing, right? So the link between DV and animal violence is well documented. We can't simply ignore it. It's there. But we know that abusers will harm and threaten pets as a way to maintain control. And if we ignore that, we're missing just a major piece of that puzzle. And people who don't feel safe, so that safety piece, they lose hope, right? So we know that through the work of RedRover, Greater Good Charities, and a number of other organizations, I want to reiterate the point that this is very possible, right? This is all these the barriers that people maybe put in front of them, that they say they can't accept pets. It is 100% possible, and I've seen it time and time again through the work of RedRover and Greater Good. So want to stress that, and also just wanted to kind of reiterate this idea of it's so important to acknowledge that pets create this huge barrier. I know that, you know, Candice and Claire have touched on it as well, but for many survivors, pets are family, and if the pet isn't safe, the survivor doesn't feel safe. So if you can keep them from leaving, if they don't have a way to leave with their pets, right? No person is going to feel safe leaving if they can't leave with their pets, because they've seen it. They've seen the abuse happen, and they know that it could happen. If it hasn't happened yet, it will happen eventually. The pets will be abused. So people don't feel safe until their pets are safe too.
Yeah. You know, I will often say we can't help people if we can't help pets, and we can't help pets if we don't help people. Yeah. Thanks, Ashley. All right, Lorie, you're a little different than the rest of the folks here. You represent sort of a different audience. So what does this mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, one of the core beliefs at Purina is that pets and people are better together, and protecting and supporting and enriching that bond is really critical to our mission as an organization. I think a lot of people think of Purina and they think of food in a bowl. And we're really a company that is built on science and the scientific understanding, not just of nutrition, but about pet health, and about the dynamics of the human pet bond. And we put a lot of resources into studying that and supporting research to study that. And I think at the core, we're pet lovers. And for us, it really recognizing, I think to your point, Katie, helping people can help pets and helping pets can help people.
Yeah.
One of the pieces that has really struck me in my 10 plus years working in the domestic violence space with Purina is that I think that there is just a little bit of a lack of empathy in society for other people, and I think that pets have this incredible way of opening doors and conversations. And to talk about an issue like domestic abuse, when you talk about it only from the human aspect, I think there's skepticism and there's a feeling of, oh, well, I would have done this or this. How could somebody? And when you look at it from the pet perspective, it is a completely different conversation. And I think that that's really what we try and focus on, is driving awareness of domestic abuse through the lens and the perspective of the pet. So it's critical to have the knowledge and the understanding of the impacts on both sides, but really the mission and the goal of everybody, certainly, here speaking today, is to really save lives on both ends of that leash. And I think whether you come to it naturally from the human side or the pet side, there is the intrinsic link is what really allows us the opportunity to have a stage, to have conversations that are just going to move forward and helping the pets and the people.
Yeah, it's a wonderful point. And Lorie, you and I have talked about it quite a bit. A lot of folks don't understand domestic violence. They do have a lot of judgment around it, but what a lot of folks do understand is loving a pet. And when you can bring them into that conversation, I think it really does open that empathy and opens that door for understanding. So awesome. Thank you. I got a couple of questions for each of you, and you kind of touched on some of it already as well. So I'll just give you all some time maybe to expand if you want to. So first question for you, Claire. Why is it so important for victim advocates to recognize and support the human-animal bond? And maybe, if you want to expand on that, what does it look like for an advocate to support that human-animal bond?
Right. So we know, statistically, during COVID and such, pet ownership went way up, and, so many of us became COVID pet owners. And we also know and are seeing more and more research, right, on the significance of the human animal bond, which many of us here today know firsthand as pet lovers. And so when we're approaching as an advocacy organization, and we work at NOVA with advocates across the country, from community-based advocates, system advocates, military advocates, campus advocates, and I see many of our community members here. It's so important that we really look holistically at how we can support survivors at every point in their journey. And that includes looking holistically at pets and the significance of animals. And it can be as simple as starting to just build a relationship with your Humane Society, with your Animal Control Office, with your veterinarian office, inviting them to events during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, inviting them to your coordinated community response meetings, understanding, what is their capacity to be able to support? Are they screening for? If they do see animal cruelty, are they asking questions about the humans in the home? Starting to introduce some of those early cross-training opportunities, those can be important first steps that don't take a lot of work, but can be essential so that you have those relationships in place prior to, working with a survivor who identifies that as a barrier to leaving an abusive relationship.
Yeah, I love
Similarly,
that.
I think another thing that's exciting and it continues to grow across the country is we have more and more states, I think, and we're now over 40 states, where within protective orders, the animals can be included. Advocating for that in every single state is so important because, again, we recognize what a barrier it is to leaving an abusive relationship. The third thing I think that's really important for advocates to think about, and I'm glad you raised this at the beginning, Katie, is a lot of us think about dogs and cats and such when we're talking about companion animals. But companion animals, continues to expand in terms of our definition, right? From, snakes to rodents to different types of animals to farm animals. And so making sure that when we're thinking about our support as a coordinated community response, that we're thinking about all different types of animals and how we can make sure that the animals are safe, the same as the survivors are safe, our human survivors.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would just say is for our military community here, and I say this as a family member of military, is even in a non-abusive situation, it can be really dangerous. It can be really dangerous. It can be really challenging to move with your pets. PCSing, going OCONUS, going outside the continental United States. There's all sorts of challenges for being a military family with pets. And we also know that military families have pets at the same rates as non-military families. So it's really important for communities and advocates to also think about how are they going to specifically support military connected survivors as well, who have pets. And that's another just challenge and opportunity for support that we can provide.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Claire. I love that. Ask the questions and learn. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful first step. Candice, you shared a little bit about what, personally and professionally brings you to this work. We've seen progress. So we're at 19.42% of shelters in the US are currently pet friendly. So that means pets can stay on site with their pet parent, their survivor. We still have some work to go, but we've seen some progress. So what does it mean for you to see and know that more organizations are pet friendly, that are recognizing and incorporating pets?
Yeah, it's really exciting to me. It's something that I can tell a quick little story. So at Alexander House, we're not just talking about it, we're actually doing it. We have decided to do like a little phased situation because of donations, and we need to, collect money to be able to do all these things. So we took a few rooms and we accommodated them to have doggy doors in them and kennels inside so that the dogs could go outside. When I first envisioned doing this, I was standing outside handing a $5,000 check over. It was the biggest donation I'd ever made. And I'm like, why don't we just have a pet shelter? Like, why do we not do this? And then I started Googling, I found RedRover, and then I found Katie. I did the 6-hour course, and I quickly learned that you can't just like call it a shelter. The cities don't like that. So I was like, oh, okay. So I'm very naive. I had no clue. And I said, well, I have all these veterinary partners, so I at least can connect everybody. And I had to go pitch the shelter as a former participant and say, hey, we can do this. They're giving blueprints, and, they even talk about shelters that have allergy concerns, or what about your insurance if a dog bites a child, or, all these things that could really, in theoretic, like could happen. Right. And so it was like a big leap. So I had to go to the director and I had to pitch them and say, we can do this. And they're like, yeah, let's go, So they jumped on board with RedRover, and we've been in, like, we completed the first phase of it. Like I said, we had our ribbon cutting ceremony in January 2025. And since then, we've had 30 dogs, pets, cats, and their people come to the shelter. So we've actually been seeing an overflow. So there's other rooms that we have that we're just fitting animals in. Like, we don't have a specific kennel or spot for them. They're just in there. So we are still fundraising for phase 2. That would then reaccommodate those areas too. Having like little doggy credenzas where they could go out. The other thing that I'll say too, that little bit piggybacks on what Claire said, is about the relationship. So I went to a veterinary clinic that I knew very well to ask them, hey, would you help us with like low care, no care, spays, neuters, vet care? And of course they said yes. They've also been doing procedures like dentals and lumpectomies and things that may be a little bit more outside of just like a normal health care situation. So they've been amazing, and then we have the Animal Humane Society here locally. And I knew that they already do training. So I asked them, hey, could you train the staff? Could you train the participants when they come in? We want to keep everybody, bite free. We want to keep everyone safe. And so they've also done some of that as well, as they provided free training. Another challenge that we had is space. So we didn't have like enough place to put all of these donations. So we started getting hundreds and hundreds of pounds of food. Locally, Nutrisource is made in Minnesota. KLN is the company. So they just donated a whole 500 pounds to us for our Hope Fest this weekend. So we're getting a lot of really good local support as well as on the national level now with our friends at Purina and Greater Good Charities and RedRover and DomesticShelters.org. So I mean, we're just like so excited about that. But I think that one of the best things is that, knowing that there's always going to be a challenge and there's so many ways to come up with a solution for it. So whether it's allergies or, like I said, insurance, like certain insurance carriers won't allow pit bulls or certain breeds of dogs. And it's ridiculous. It's like, they're all dogs, we have backup plans for if a pet does not do well in the shelter, so there might still be situations, but there might be situations where we can connect with a local Airbnb investor and then they can go stay there instead of at the emergency shelter. So we really try to kind of figure out ways to make this work for our community. And then it's also got the buzz around, because we're in the Twin Cities area. Blaine is basically a little bit north of Minneapolis, just to give you an idea if you don't know. And we've gotten people all over the state and then also in the Midwest that are calling and asking us how you're doing this. Will you help us do it? So, and then one last thing I'll share is that I don't think that anybody should have to choose, between safety or even just in crisis in general. So my main goal is to really get to every crisis shelter. So homeless shelters, transitional housing, emergency response facilities, anything I think should just be inclusive of pets. So I really hope that when we do share this information, that it does build up in the domestic community, but also in every crisis community. So that's my main goal.
I love it. Thanks, Candice. I'm going to steal something from Chrissy at Purina that she shared recently. There are many reasons why a survivor may not be able to or may delay leaving an abuser. Many reasons. Pets don't need to be one of them. We can work through this. There are challenges and we can absolutely work through it. So thanks, Candice. And I'm also going to give a little plug for Candice. You'll see the information later, but you can learn more about Candice's story and the work there with Lionesses Pet Haven on October the 29th. Candice is going to be doing a longer presentation for us. I'll give you that info again at the end, but just want to plug that here. So Ashley, a big part of your work with DomesticShelters.org is making sure survivors know what resources are available, right? So why is it so important to make sure that survivors know what resources are available and specifically those pet-friendly resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've said many times, survivors face just overwhelming barriers, right? So leaving abuse is complex, and statistically, when people leave, it's the most dangerous time for a survivor. So as we know, abuse tends to escalate when the abuser knows that they're losing that sense of control. So survivors, they just often don't know what help is out there, what exists, right? No one teaches you growing up that if you experience this, this is what you do, and this is who you call. And if you move, maybe you did know who the shelter was, but you moved across the country and you don't know what resources are there. Awareness is the deciding factor in seeking help, right? If you don't think that there's help out there, you don't have any hope. You don't have a pathway forward. You just kind of are stuck. So getting people past those barriers with that education and that understanding of what information's out there. But this information really is life-saving, right? So it's connecting survivors to resources, access to trusted and people who understand the nuances of abuse, whether we encourage people obviously to talk to family and friends, but if you talk to a domestic violence advocate, they're going to listen in a very different way, a very understanding and genuine way. So trying to connect people with those advocates that are out there. And of course, survivors gain confidence and agency when they know what options are there. Even a single piece of information, just learning that they don't have to leave their dog behind or their lizard behind or their rabbit behind, that they can bring that, that loved animal with them can change the survivor's decision. So as you mentioned, domesticshelters.org kind of exists to bridge that gap, right? We know that people go online when they have questions. They go to our trusted friend Google, or nowadays ChatGPT. They go all different places, and we want to make sure that the internet is just filled to the brim with information that is helpful, accurate, and very specific to someone's location and situation. We recently launched Hope Chat, which lives on domesticshelters.org, and it allows people to ask very specific questions and get very tailored information to their needs. So if they want to ask a question about their pet and they name it, they talk about Fido and all the things they love about Fido, ChatGPT works in with Hope Chat to understand the dynamics of abuse, but understand their situation and make them feel understood and get them the help that they need. So, information is everything. Getting that knowledge in the hands of people, it changes their whole trajectory of what they decide to do next, whether it's, just to gather information now or to decide to leave right now. It just changes everything.
I love that. I love that point about agency, right? Like, I think information is power, right? And that's amazing power that our survivors can take and decide what they want to be their next step. I love it. All right, Lorie, can you tell us a little bit about Purple Leash Project and why is it so important to Purina? Because I know it is.
Oh, it's I would argue most important. It's really an effort now that is going international, which is really cool for us. Some of our counterparts in Canada and other parts of the world are taking on the Purple Leash Project and really introducing it into their countries, which is amazing, and something I think when we created the program we only dreamed of happening. So. The Purple Leash Project is really an effort, a collaborative effort with RedRover, Katie and her team, to really help shine a light on this issue, right, and help drive awareness, advocacy, support for domestic violence survivors that are both human and pet, and help provide more resources for them to escape abuse and start the healing process together. We launched the program in 2019. We'd actually been working in the domestic violence space for quite a while before that as well, doing advocacy for federal funding and federal support in DC, and working with a collaboration called the Pause Act Coalition that we helped found to help get some federal resources passed. And we had really been focusing our efforts in one market to start. And at the time, there was an emerging leader within the company who said, this is not just a single market issue, right? This is a national problem. You should really think about how are you going to make this a national effort. We're a huge company. We have resources. Let's really push this and see how far we can take it, find the right partner, and do that. Now that emerging leader is now the CEO of our company, Nina Lee Kruger, and she is a huge advocate for the work that we're doing. And continue to do. But our primary kind of means of support right now are providing grants to domestic violence shelters across the country to help them take that step to become pet friendly. And we do that with the expertise of RedRover. We know our limits. We know the power of the bond. We know all of the background science of pets. RedRover really knows the domestic violence shelter world, and we really respect them as a partner and look at them and have planning and say, how do we continue to move this forward? So I think as we look into the future right now, we've provided, I think, almost $2 million, maybe a little over $2 million of grant support, provided 59 grants, I believe, to date since 2019. And those can range in needs up to $60,000 per shelter. And we continue to challenge ourselves and say, how else can we help? The survivor journey is not just through one path of sheltering. So I think as you kind of look, and if I have a crystal ball looking into the future, we're really looking at how do we meet the needs of survivors with pets at different phases of the journey, with the shelter environment being certainly a critically important one, and we'll continue doing that. But knowing that, the journey from survivor can also lead down paths of homelessness, especially for women, can lead into other areas. So we want to be really, really mindful and make sure that we're meeting them where they are. So it's obviously a very passionate thing for me. I was on the group that helped create Purple Leash, and it's something that I come to work every day excited about this work and what we can do using kind of the pets as a catalyst for these big important conversations.
Yeah. And I just have to say, Purina has just been, wonderful to work with. I think being a nonprofit organization, it could be a little scary to like step into that corporate room and say, okay, like let's talk about this. But it's been a wonderful experience. And, I often say, I'll tell folks, obviously the financial support is super, super important, right? Like no nonprofit is ever going to really want to turn that down. But I think the power for me of the Purple Leash Project is that idea of the awareness that you raise, and not just awareness for donations. I mean the awareness to let survivors know it's okay if you're worried about your pet. It is okay, if you are hesitant to leave because you can't take your pet with you. And I think that is one of my favorite things about the Purple Leash Project, to think about a survivor walking down the grocery store aisle and seeing that purple branded bag of dog food or cat litter that has that message of, hey, it's okay, we see you. We see you as a survivor and a pet parent. So I just big thank you for the Purple Leash Project. All right, so I do want to get to some audience questions. So I'm going to have the team prep for that, to start pulling out any audience questions that we have, and let Danielle start to get ready for the unmuting of everybody. But as we get ready for that, really quick, I'm going to ask each of the panelists in very few words, if you can, how can individuals support this kind of work in their local communities? What are your thoughts around that? I'll open it up to everybody. So I won't go around the horn, as they say, but if you have thoughts that you want to share on that question, go for it. Ashley.
Yes. I'm going to say it because I know you're going to say it later, and I'll sound extra smart if I say it now, but don't forget the pets training. I know we already said it, but that was my gateway into RedRover, was taking that training in Phoenix. And it opened my eyes to, one, the issue, which I know you all know about it now because you've sat and listened to everyone talking today, but take that training because it's going to equip you to have that conversation with your local domestic violence program and just start to make those relationships and get people thinking about it. Because I think once people understand that it's not as daunting as it may make once seem, people will start to make those little steps, and it makes such a difference.
I love it. Ashley was not paid for that. I love it. Thanks.
Just a fan.
There you go. Right back at you. Anybody else? Thoughts?
I will piggyback that was the training that I took, where I did learn all of these things. And then I also will say too, that if you can just start talking about it or bring awareness to the subject in general, I think then it's easy to talk about pets when you're talking about it. We also do things in our local community, like we put purple lights out, just to kind of put awareness out there. We do a Hope Fest every year in our local community that kind of gets everybody excited for Awareness Month. So there's many different things that you can do to get ready. But if you can purple your house, that's what we like to do here.
I love it. Thanks, Candice. And, whenever I'm asked this question, that is one of the things I like to say. The easiest thing you can do is talk about it. Like, let's normalize the conversation around domestic violence. Let's talk about it and talk about domestic violence and pets. Claire, what you got?
I was just going to say, little things can go a long way. So I remember many years ago, and this probably ages me, but when the Family Violence Prevention Fund, now Futures Without Violence, first did one of their big domestic violence campaigns around domestic violence is not a family matter. And the first image had a woman and children in it. And then they redid it, I think this is with the Baltimore Police Department at the time, and they put a dog in the photo. And it was such a simple move, but it sent the message that we care as an advocacy community about your whole family, including your pets. So I would say simple actions, starting the conversation. The other thing that I think is important is we're all here for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so We're talking primarily about the link between domestic violence and animal cruelty, but also thinking about family violence more holistically and that link with animal cruelty, including child abuse, elder abuse, and other vulnerable humans within a home, and how animal cruelty can so oftentimes be an indicator of family violence.
I love that. Thanks, Claire. Yeah. All right. Audience questions. Do we have any in there, Sherry? And also, folks, you can drop your questions in the chat. You can also raise your hand, and when you raise your hand, that will give us the opportunity to go ahead and unmute you. I'm just going to give folks a moment to pause. Sherry, what you got?
Oh, I wasn't sure. Jennifer had a question. Do you assist animal rescues that help with the DV shelters and homeless shelters? And I wasn't sure if that was directed at RedRover or one of our panelists.
Yeah, I think the very short answer to that is yeah, absolutely. At least RedRover does, as well as Greater Good Charities in terms of grant funding. Absolutely. And I think there have been some links that have been dropped in there for information as well. And definitely, I would say if you want to continue that conversation, Jennifer, reach out to Tia. And Tia can help provide you that information. Looks like that question was directed at Purina, but I'm going to say go ahead and reach out to Tia anyways, and then Tia can kind of be that go-to person for Purina. Cool, thanks. All right, Donna, I hope I'm saying it right.
Yes.
I think, yeah. What's your question?
So when I signed up for this conference, I just did it because I have a dog. He's my service dog. He's a hound pointer. I call him my funny face boy because he loves that song. Funny face, I love you, funny face, that song. And so I signed up for the general interest in the love of animals. I grew up with 8 dogs, a big dog lover. But he's my service dog and he saved my life in many, many ways. I'm also a survivor of domestic violence. And I am going to resonate with, or I do resonate with Claire, who mentioned that this is often a family problem. I've seen domestic violence more than once, experienced it myself as an adult, but also experienced it as a child. And people think, oh, the child is not being abused. Yes, the child is being abused psychologically, mentally, all sorts of things. And then you think the child would avoid the problem in the future, but the child doesn't know how to avoid the problem because they haven't analyzed the problem and haven't had the necessary psychological intervention. So when people design intervention programs, I don't see very often that children are targeted as a primary victim who need psychological intervention in order to avoid running into the same traffic accident again. That's an analogy, right? So after I signed up, lo and behold, I'm still in a phase of recovery from a recent domestic violence situation that has and so I'm in a sort of, I'm in a situation where I'm residing at this cooperative place with an old friend of 40 years. And some people object to the size of my dog. Oh, he's too big to be a service dog. Well, he's a hound and a pointer. They don't make them in 5-pound sizes. And then people don't understand, what does it really mean to be a service dog? Well, is he going to bite me? He's vegetarian, he doesn't eat people. That's what sometimes that's what I say, you know. But nonetheless, there's anxiety within the management company, and this is a very reputable, large, respectable management company that has buildings, luxury buildings all over the country. And yet I feel that there is great need for intervention in terms of education. And so I'm wondering if RedRover, somebody at RedRover, would be interested in taking up the challenge of beginning to educate the management company, maybe just on paper at first. And then if they warm up and they would like to have some other kind of training and you have that as an option, then maybe that's one question. The second question is, if I may, is I'm in great need. So I had a stroke. Those of you who can see my asymmetric face, I've had a stroke. and therefore I haven't been able to practice. I also had huge student loans and didn't accumulate any wealth from my MD from Harvard Medical School, which is unfortunate in so many respects of in so many ways, right? And that's a part of the reason why I'm in this situation. And now I've forgotten my question because I do have traumatic brain injury related to my
It's all
stroke.
good.
I also have.
Why don't we, Donna, if you're okay with it, why don't we'll take on the first question, and then we can always follow up with you later on the second question. Just because we also have about 5 minutes left, and I do want to get to 2 more questions. I see a couple of hands raised. So the simple answer to your question about pet inclusive housing and just sort of what it means from like rental and affordable housing, it is a challenge. Like that is the simple fact of it right now. It is definitely a challenge. It's not something that is really in RedRover's wheelhouse. What I will direct you to though is my dog. I'm sorry, not my dog is my home. It is the PIHI, the Pet Inclusive Housing Initiative from Michelson Found Animals. And I think one of our teammates can drop that link in for us. They are the ones who are really, I think, doing the work around it and really, pushing forward into what it means and the benefits of being a pet inclusive rental property. So I would say that would be a great start for you. But definitely, Donna, reach out to either Danielle or Tia, and we could help facilitate some of that information for you. Love it. Okay. We're going to do 2 more questions. I know there are 3 hands raised, but let's do 2 more quick questions. And then I have just a couple of like wrap up slides. And then if folks are able, there's no pressure. I can stick around for a little bit after the hour is done. If other folks have the time and want to stay around, I'll offer that to you all, but there's no pressure for that. So Jamie, I see you are next.
Hello everybody. I'm so sorry I jumped in late today. I've been busy doing outreach for our Pause for a Purpose program coming up. I think I might be all set because Joanna shared her email so I can follow up with her because I messaged Lorie. I think I have a whole bunch of names written down. So I don't want to take up any time. I think they'll be able to help me with what my questions are.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Thank you. All right, Jan, I see you next.
Yes. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
I've been a past RedRover disaster services responder, and that's how I'm aware of.
Yes, you have.
And I have followed RedRover for a good decade and a half or so now. But anyways, and I loved when this initiative came up to help with the intervention in in domestic violence. I am not a DV survivor myself, but I'm aware of it and, grew up around it. But so my questions, and I'll try to keep them brief. One of the things that I do is I'm a policy volunteer with the Humane Society of the United States, now HWA. But basically, I try to work through electeds and work through governmental bodies. And when we were, I'm in the Portland metro of, the area where, we're supposedly under siege and war. But anyways, I'm in the Portland metro of Oregon. And when we had a bunch of elections in the last election cycle, and I had a chance to go, one of my, I'm being too lengthy, but when it came to endorsements and stuff of different political candidates for the city council, I would always bring up the issue of like, what is your stance on helping and doing outreach and, with DV, and what, is this an area that's in your wheelhouse that you plan to address if elected to the Portland City Council? I just used as an opportunity to get the conversation started. So I guess I would love to is there a playbook or a toolkit or anything that I can do from RedRover or from one of the other advocacy organizations that's trying to get this intervention, tentacles into our community response to, so I would love a leg up on that to know how to get information into my electeds. And also, I do want to sign up for the pets training if that's available to me as a RedRover mom. Maybe that's where I would learn about how to do these things that I'm talking about. Yeah. my
Yeah.
first question. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely share information on Don't Forget the Pets in just a minute. So don't you worry about that, Jan. I will just say it's not going to be very focused on policy. It's a little bit more like hands-on. So like, how do we make it work? So I'm for your first question around policy and just politics and how do we move these forward on that level, I'm going to check with the panel first and see if anybody has any thoughts on that. I know everybody's like, oh, it's hard. Claire.
I mean, I say there's probably no topic that's more bipartisan than animals. I mean, just honestly, everyone loves animals, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think starting there and starting from the standpoint of there's a lot of focus right now on safety, on justice. And, one of the things that's exciting that I've seen working on this for the past 30 years is there's so much more research on, everything that we've talked about today, from intervention to safety to justice, in terms of understanding this link. And so drawing upon those decades of research, and then also, some of the stories that I think we've all heard today and throughout our careers in terms of how survivors are directly impacted, I think is so meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would probably point you to organizations like AWI, Animal Welfare Institute. I know Habry, Human Animal Bond Research Institute, got dropped in there a few minutes ago. They just wrapped up Pet Week on the Hill. And then, I think even HWA, so Humane World for Animals, formerly HSUS, I think does, still do a little bit around just this sort of general idea. I think it's hard work right now, but I think Claire's right. I think pets are still something that no matter where you're coming at on the political spectrum, we can usually agree around pets and safety. So. All right. I know we're at 2 minutes past the hour, so I'm just going to give a couple quick reminders for folks. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Perhaps the most important reminder for our CEU folks, you are going to get a link in the follow-up email in order to get the certificate for that CEU. But it's really, really important that your Zoom name matches your registration name. And I did see some chatter there in the box about that. If you have any issues, please reach out to Danielle and she can help you with that. Okay. Next reminder, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, RedRover is kicking off our first Domestic Violence Awareness and Action Month campaign. This is sort of the launch event for it. We have an exciting series left in October. I would love it if you want to join us next week. I'm going to be having a conversation with our folks from San Diego Humane Society and Ruthless Kindness about community and their perspective. I think I saw Sarah hop in here, so please join me to have a chat with Sarah next week. They're coming from the animal side of things, so they're going to be sharing their perspective. We're going to have our amazing friends from Safe Voices in Maine joining us on the 15th to talk about their journey to becoming pet friendly, and not just pet friendly, but really being pet inclusive at this point. From Classroom to Community is a special student-specific talk that Tia and I are going to be giving. So students from the veterinary community, social work community, would love to have you all join us for that talk. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, Candice is going to be joining us on the 29th to talk about the journey for Linus's Pet Haven, which she talked a little bit about earlier today. So super, super exciting lineup for you. You can sign up. It's all free, of course. Use the QR code or go to redrover.org/DVAM. And then last but not least, don't forget the pets. Thank you so much for the kind words that folks shared about that today. It is a joint project of Red Rover and Greater Good Charities. It is all free. We offer training workshops in person. We would love to come to community. So please reach out to Danielle if you want us to come and do it for free. We have a brand new online course, so you can now take that Don't Forget the Pets virtual training, go at your own pace. We have guest presentations. We offer free coaching or technical assistance. We also have document and video libraries so you can see our past guest presentations, take deep dives with us. Again, it's all free. Visit don'tforgetthepets.org. So I'm going to skip that one. And I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists for joining us. And, you know, you all really, I think, have made this movement continue to move forward. And it's been amazing. I get to work with many of you, at least occasionally throughout the year. And it's such a blast. And I think, you know, this work really does take a community. You know, I think it works really well when we collaborate and we work with each other. And I'm so glad that you all are a part of Red Rover's community. I also want to thank everybody who joined us here today. Fabulous, just number of folks. Wonderful to see your chats in there and the amazing work that you all are doing in your community. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. If you need to drop off, please feel free. I know Deborah had one more question. I will stick around. There's no pressure, folks. Anybody who needs to hop off, please do so. But thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, and look at that. Now we have another question too. All right, my panelists, you're going to stay for at least a couple minutes, maybe?
Sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we get bonus time. I love it. As long as Pepper comes back around at some point, Lorie. That's all I got to say.
She's fast asleep.
She's fast asleep. I love it. All right, Deborah, I think you are up. We'll maybe take just about 5-10 more minutes to see what other questions we can answer. Okay.
Okay, sure. I did take that 6-hour thing. I think I kind of went the route that Candice took.
Yeah.
And I learned so much. I just want to say one thing that I learned that I had never even thought about was that animals probably never had been to a vet.
Yeah.
Totally blew my mind. Something that was never even in my thoughts, which just told me that there's so much more that it's not on my, you know, in my little circle of thinking. But I am a dog trainer and I would love so much to get involved with this. And I don't know I don't know where to go to talk to someone. I've called a couple domestic abuse shelters, but they're so busy. And as soon as I say, you know, thankfully I'm not the one being abused, they're like, okay, well, you know, maybe next week. And I totally understand that, but I want so much to become involved in this. I don't want to walk away from it because everyone's busy.
Yeah.
So what do I do?
Yeah. Thoughts from the group.
Well, I can share my thoughts. And one thing is that you might get a lot of no's before you get a yes. And so it might just be one of those things where you may have to reach out to a few different shelters. I don't know how big of an area it is, but there may be other regions where you could, you know, and what I did is I made a pitch. I was like, okay, I've got to have, you know, some strong evidence that they're going to trust me, that this can happen, you know. So talk about and maybe come up with a few things that are really important. So I can tell you insurance is a big thing that we, you know, like a lot of people in the organization, we're trying to come up with reasons well, it's not going to work because of this. So if you can, you know, try to get the insurance figured out, you know, blueprints for the place. If you have to create a bill within the city, you know, talk about some of the really hard points and say, we've already got partners that have figured this out and doing it everywhere. So just to give them hope. And then I would say, just keep going, because it might be you have to reach 10 people before you get the 11th person to say yes. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, it's so true. I will often say, you just got to be patiently persistent. And just because it's your priority right now doesn't mean it's somebody else's priority right now, which you mentioned too, Deborah. You know, and sometimes you just have to wait until the timing is right, which I know can be, you know, it can be hard. It can be, you know, a little challenging and deflating, but I would just say stick with it. Any other thoughts from the group before we go to Kim? Okay, Kim, what's your question?
Yes, hi. I work for a domestic violence shelter, and my concerns are, I think, a little bit different. It's more of a resource, I think, question for us. We're very rural. We don't have public transportation. We only have 6 rooms. With funding cuts, a lot of the shelters around us are closing their doors. And I think right now I was looking at numbers, and we've seen more and more individuals coming in with emotional support animals, and we don't want to be that barrier, but we're probably down about 30 residents, 30 to 40 this year, because we're bringing in so many emotional support animals that we're turning people away. Now it's impacting our bed capacity. We're in town, so we don't have space to like build a kennel. We don't have extra space in our building. We've tried to look at some different options, but we're running into some barriers with like our insurance carrier. We've met with our local city to see if they could maybe expand kennels, so we could have some backup options. We're trying to exhaust all these resources, but with having limited staff and going into more funding cuts, and not having public transportation, rarely do they have the vaccines that they need. So it's a barrier for us to partner with other organizations because they want them, to have certain vaccines. I mean, we're struggling just to have them all vaccinated with the rabies vaccine. We ran into issues where they've neglected their emotional support animal, or they've, left them unattended, and then our staff are taking on that responsibility. And we only have 1 staff member in our building nights and weekends to answer our crisis hotline and meet all the needs of the clients. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, we don't want to be that barrier, but we're trying to find a way to balance, recognizing that, yes, they need to come in with their emotional support animal, but how do we do this in a way where my staff aren't completely exhausted? And I don't know. And I don't know if anyone has answers for this. But we've even had a few situations where we've had quite a few clients that have medical needs that have been hospitalized. And they don't have a service animal. They just have an emotional support animal. In one case, we had 2 very large dogs that they left behind for like 3 days. And my staff were coming in all hours, day and night, to care for them. And I mean, we were exhausted. So any suggestions this group has to help us so that we're not that barrier, would be amazing.
Yeah, I'll let folks compose their thoughts and see if they want to add anything. And I'll just start off and say you are experiencing the exact same challenges and discussions and questions that probably everybody else who is doing this work or wants to do this work is doing. So just know you're not alone. And with that, please come to a workshop, like come to coaching. It's, every single thing you just talked about, I feel 100% confident that we can help you work towards yes on all of those things and work through all those challenges. So any other thoughts from our panelists on that?
I was just going to suggest go to Katie's workshop.
Okay. I love it. Thanks, Lorie. Claire, I saw you come off mute. Anything you want to share?
Well, I was just gonna say, one, Kim, and I see other people saying they have similar issues.
Yeah.
Those are really very real concerns, and it's particularly challenging in rural areas where you don't have the manpower and such. And so I think, yes, go to Katie's workshop. I think also convening a meeting in your community of, whatever veterinarian hospitals or offices there are there, whatever the Humane Society or other animal control is, just to start exploring, here's our collective issue. How can we collectively look at what resources are so we can more holistically support both human and animal survivors during this time? And, because sometimes you do have to be, I think, really creative when resources are so scarce. The other thing I would just plug is I think the state domestic violence coalitions do a fantastic job. And I know so many of them are working on this issue. So reaching out to them to see specifically within your state And the National Network to End Domestic Violence has all the state DV agencies there, if you're not familiar, and see how can they support you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point, Claire. And when you come to a workshop, I know I appear very confident right now, and I'm like, come to a workshop. Please know, like, I come from the human services world. And so when I approach this work, I completely understand, and everybody on our team, we know this is hard work. This is hard work, and things are going to go wrong. And that's okay, because just remember, you're amazing problem solvers. You problem solve every day. This is just a different problem. And I can't, reiterate what Claire said enough. Like, I would actually really encourage you not to do this work if you're just doing it on your own. If you do not have those conversations with your veterinary partners and your animal welfare partners and your animal control, like, you will not be able to continue this work long term if you don't have those partnerships, because you're going to have those times when you have two dogs who just aren't going to thrive on site, and you're going to need that backup housing. So I know I appear very, very confident, and I am very confident that we can help you work through it. But it's not without knowing that, this work can be hard. We totally recognize this. So, but I will also say, it can be a real tool for fundraising. Candice mentioned it earlier. If you build it, they will come, which does also mean you have to talk about it. And that, I think, is one of the most important pieces of this, is you're going to have to talk about it. And you're going to get donations. You're going to get some of that supply support. So, it is 15 after the hour, technically 16 after the hour. So I am going to adjourn us. I so appreciate our panelists also sticking around with us for a few extra minutes. So appreciate it. I see Noah is in there, one of our other Purple Leash Project partners. Good to see you, Noah. Thank you again for your time today. Super appreciate it. And I hope I will see some more of our attendees at one of our upcoming presentations, or maybe in the Don't Forget the Pets program. So thank you all.